Hey guys, back from, what was it, 5 months? Well, anyways, today I'm here to talk to you about the Nintendo Switch. Now, the Nintendo Switch is an amazing console. You can not only play on your TV or monitor, but you can also take it out of its dock and take it on the go, such as in the car or on the bus. And you can even use it in some more interesting locations. One great thing about the Switch is that you get local multiplayer straight out of the box. With the detachable Joy-Cons, you can have two people playing right there on the console or on the TV. And if you have even more Joy-Cons or other controllers, you can get even more people. Now, one problem is that, while yes, the Switch you can use standing up with the kickstand on the back, right here, it does have the problem of when you have multiple people playing, especially on just the tiny screen, it gets a little bit crowded as the Switch only has a 6-inch screen, and that can cause problems when you're playing with 4 or even more people. So let's talk about some dock options. The Nintendo Switch dock is amazing. It allows you to plug your Switch into a TV or monitor and play on there, instead of playing on the 6-inch screen that is so hard with 4 or more players. Now, when traveling, it is kind of hard to carry the Switch dock around, as it is pretty bulky. And I'm going to talk about some alternatives. The first option is to buy a third-party Switch dock. This seems like the simplest answer, as the third-party Switch docks are most of the time more affordable and even smaller than the normal Switch dock. But there are some problems that these docks cause. First of all is the display standard. The Switch doesn't use a standard display output. It uses a proprietary standard called MyDP, and many of these docks that are advertised for other USB-C devices such as laptops are unprepared for the Switch's output and simply won't display. The second problem is power. The Switch fluctuates in power depending on what game it's playing, such as Breath of the Wild. So, with these docks unprepared for these power changes, these can potentially fry the dock or even brick your Switch, which has happened in some instances. Now, the second option, which I'll be showing you today, is actually removing the hardware from your original Switch dock and putting it in a smaller enclosure. Now, this will void the warranty on your Switch dock, but it will guarantee that your Switch will work perfectly with your new dock, as it will have the original hardware, and it will be much more portable than this giant bulk of plastic. Now, what you will need to perform this is a first-party Nintendo Switch dock, the new enclosure for it, a Y-head screwdriver, which can be found in most screwdriver sets and can be tooled by its 3 points at the front, and a thin Phillips head screwdriver, which I will explain in a little bit. First, we're going to flip the Nintendo Switch dock around and open up the back panel. Here, you'll see a couple of screws, both on the actual circuit board and on the back of the Switch. These are the Y-head screws, and you'll need to unscrew all of them. Next up, we're going to pull off this back panel. And wow, look at that. This is all that's really to the Switch dock. Now, you're going to need your thin Phillips head screwdriver. And why, you ask? Well, if you can see, there are some really deep holes here with Phillips head screws inside. And a standard screwdriver, as I have here, just won't fit inside. So, you're going to need to use a thin one to get these screws out. I would also suggest pulling these two tabs back and moving the Switch circuit board out of the way. That way you can get at a couple more screws that are underneath the circuit board. At this point now, you should have unscrewed 9 Phillips head screws, 4 small Y head screws, and 4 large Y head screws. Next up, we're going to remove this part of the switch dock. Now, before we do, we're going to want to unplug both the LED indicator and the ribbon cable to the USB-C port. With the LED indicator, you can just easily pull it out. And with the ribbon cable, it will require a little bit more care, either using a finger, or if you need to, you can use a flathead screw, such as this one. Now, remove the circuit board and put it somewhere safe for now. Next up, the front panel should pop off almost immediately. And as you can see, we're left with the middle part of the switch dock and the front part. Now, this is what we're going to be working at now, because this has the ribbon cable with the USB-C port, which we're going to need. Next up, you want to pull down on the part with the USB-C port, and it should pop out just like this. Next up, there are 4 more Phillips head screws on the back, which you're going to need to unscrew. Alright, now that we got those screws off, we gotta be careful that we don't lose any parts here, such as the springs. And then we're gonna remove this tiny plastic shielding. And there will be 2 more screws here, which you're just gonna need to unscrew to get this ribbon cable and port free. Oops. Now there we have it, the USB-C port and the ribbon cable. Now all you have to do is take the ribbon cable and connect it back onto the circuit board. And there you have it. That's the switch dock. Now I have to say, compared to the full-size dock, the hardware inside it looks like it's overcompensating for something. Anyways, let's install this in its new case. Now comparing the size of the two, you can already tell that this new one is going to be a lot smaller than the old original one. And yeah, it's pretty small. Now, this case that I have here has the hardware and screwdrivers needed to install it. And if it doesn't, you're going to need to look up what it will need to be installed. The first thing you're going to want to do is take your switch's circuit board and line it up with the indenting on the top portion of this casing. Next up, you're going to take 3 of the larger screws and screw in the top 3 holes here, here, and here. Just remember to be careful not to poke the circuit board with one of the screws. Next up, I'm going to take the USB-C port and the ribbon cable and line it up with the indenting at the top. Next, you're going to take two of the smaller screws and screw the USB-C port into place. Next up, flatten out the ribbon cable to make space for the bottom part of the encasement. And finally, take 4 more of the bigger screws and screw it into place. And there we have it. A much tinier Nintendo Switch dock. Now, when compared to the standard Switch dock, it does feel a little stiffer, and it is slightly hard to put the Switch into place. Also, when lifting your Switch up, you might also lift the dock up due to the Switch now having a much heavier weight than the dock. But, in return, this dock is way lighter than the old dock and also much, much smaller. And just as some proof that this Switch dock does work, there you have it. And that's pretty much it. Now, you have a tiny Switch dock, and I think now's a good time to end the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like. And if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you, and see you next time. One more thing, always remember to clean up after yourself. And maybe keep those parts, just in case.